going to be covering 10 financial strategies to surviving COVID or surviving any financial downturn. I have the pleasure of being here with Gary Parmar, who is a partner with MNP LLP. We're extraordinarily lucky to have him as a mentor and supporter of our Mentor to Market program.
I'm Gary Parmar from MNP, partner here in the Kelowna office of the firm. Like Camille said earlier, we are a national accounting firm, being 5th largest in Canada, 2nd largest in BC, and I would say the largest here in Kelowna. In Kelowna, we're about 110 people. As the firm's grown in the time I've been with the firm since 1999, becoming partner in 2004, we were 160 partners. Now we're about 850 partners across Canada.
Gary, in our Mentor to Market programs, as you know, being as deeply involved as you are, our teams start off with customer discovery, working to understand whether there is a market demand for their innovation and who the buyer is. It seems to me that it's time for the teams, no matter how far along they are, to get back to basics again. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so basically what I would say there is that the demand for your products hasn't changed, or the services, it's just shifted. So what you have to be realizing that people are still looking out there to buy stuff, but what's more important to them right now in these times and what's more urgent. So I look at it as a good time to pivot in your business and seeing what other opportunities you might have in the marketplace. I'll give a personal example. As an accounting firm, we are seeing that there's more need for government program assistance, cash flow projections, and all that stuff with clients that we normally wouldn't see in good economy times. So it's a good time to actually look yourself in the mirror and look at your business in the mirror and saying, what other options do we have to pivot our business model?
Clearly, people who are building businesses have financial forecasts when they have customers, and they've got a fairly defined sense of what's coming up in the next month, 2 months, 3 months. Besides looking at their customers and their products, what would you recommend in terms of trying to relook at cash flow and get your arms around that vital part of the business?
Well, in these uncertain times, the goal would be to predict and prepare for upcoming cash shortages, right? So we don't know, we don't all have a crystal ball, but things like cash and liquidity management and cost management are going to be critical going forward. Because there's so much uncertainty. You would do cash flow forecast for the worst case, the best case, and then the most likely scenarios, because you have to be able to be moving and pivoting regularly on a timely fashion in all your business, right? Some examples of incoming cash would be like anticipated sales, investor contributions, any new loans, refunds, business support programs. And in that area, with a lot of the ventures, Shred is going to be important, IRAP, MyTax. There's also those kind of funds to have incoming cash. So that's cash injections into your company or your business. Outgoing cash is another thing that you're going to need to manage, is stuff like wages, payments to suppliers, rent, taxes, any loan payments, capital asset purchases, and withdrawals that you're taking out of your company or your business to live off of. So those are things that, whether you can defer some of these outgoing cash expenses, would be considered now. If you really need to buy that new computer or new desk, okay, can it wait? I could actually speak on a personal experience with the Shred recently. We compared a Shred claim for a new startup business here in town. We filed a claim in early April, and by the end of April, it was a first-time claim. They got their money, no questions asked. So government's doing their best to get out money to entrepreneurs and so forth. So if you have Shred claims, this is the time to do it, because there's less questions being asked by our friendly government, CRA.
What kind of strategies should a company look at in these areas to stretch out available cash and and access additional cash?
Okay, so rent is a key. So a lot of startups have rented some space here in some office buildings here in town. So CRA announced, or the Government of Canada announced, the Canadian Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program, the CERCA, if it's called, for lack of a better word. It's a short form. It's administered through the Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation. And it's something that you would talk to your landlord about, is getting some reduction in your rent. And then the landlord would go qualify for the forgivable loan from the government. So they would first negotiate with you as the tenant, saying, okay, we're going to reduce your rent. We want to keep you and not evict you. And then they would say, go back to the government through CMHC, apply for this loan that the government will forgive, saying that the landlord was helping these small businesses still to be able to run their operations.
Credit and financing, programs that offer credit and financing. Can you delve into that a little bit?
These government programs are changing. There was the one that would apply to a lot of businesses was the Canadian Emergency Business Account. So I call it the CEBA loan. So it's a $40,000 loan, which $10,000 is forgivable. So basically you're getting $10,000 for free, and it's interest free until December of 2022, I believe. And then the bank will forgive that. Programs are constantly changing, but that one is an easy talk to your banker, get that started if you meet those parameters, and they've expanded it again yesterday. BDC working capital loans that are available as well. Those are basically, you got to show the need, and those cash flow templates we talked about earlier are going to be critical in order to be able to show the bank that, hey, I'm going to be able to pay this money back. What's my business plan? Where are you going? Where do you see yourself 5 months from now? We've got, as a partner in the accounting firm, we've got relationships with a lot of the banks here in town, like BDC, Bank of Montreal. I know a lot of the bankers there. And the key is right now is being transparent with your banker right now. If you've got challenges you're facing, call them, pick up the phone and saying, hey, can I defer some payments? And a lot of that stuff is available because everyone's in that same boat right now. And we hope it all doesn't sink at the same time, right? That's the challenge.
What other areas could a company look at that they might not consider are options to reduce their cash flow right now? Well,
talking to your vendors and your suppliers and asking for better terms, right? Like if you owe money to them and say, look, hey, just don't ignore them. Talk to them, be open and transparent. If you're suffering cash flow problems, come up with a payment plan and be prepared that people are going to ask the same from you. If you've invoiced your customers for products or services and you're not getting paid, that's cashed in. And the cash out is what you got to pay out to your landlords, your employees, and all that stuff. So it's basically everything's negotiable. It's time to make a deal. And this is the time that everyone's making deals because everyone wants to see everyone succeed and no one suffer through this and are willing to take payment at a later date if they can help.
Credit rating. We're talking about trying to renegotiate and extending, and I know that when you're a young company, it's really important to keep a good credit rating. Can you talk a little bit about how that works and what considerations should be?
Staying compliant is key still, right? You might not have the money to pay your taxes. You might not have the money to pay your GST, but still file it because then the government is aware that you're starting to stay compliant. Freezing all non-essential spending, right now is critical, right? Prioritize expenses that are going to keep you operational and generate revenue for you, right? So things like it might be some tough decisions with employees too, right? Recently with reduced work hours, even furloughing them, laying them off. Look at OT banks if these employees, if you provide overtime or vacation pay or whatever, look at utilizing all your options because the risk with losing employees, if you lay them off, they might go elsewhere, you might not find them again. So if they're key employees, try to make something work with them, right? And whatever you can, right? Because you want them back because we're all human. We want to be supporting our local economy too, right?
Many of our ventures, being technology ventures, are in an R&D stage, and they had plans to build out their technology capability right now. What would you advise them?
They have to dig deep into their general ledger, if you want to call it that better word, and look at the key areas where they're spending money. And if it's all R&D, and where they're spending it. Is it through employing people to do the research? Are they subcontracting? Or they do it themselves? And saying it's prioritizing, like put down on a sheet of paper what's important right now, and what can I do it in the least cost-effective way to accomplish that and still go to market.
As I think about options, incorporating to get at shred credits, pursuing IRAP, pursuing MyTax, looking at university resources as the university opens up some of the labs and maker spaces to minimum capacity, doing partnerships with research partnerships as a industry partner, capstone teams, or with labs, and using the funding from the government to fund that. So starting to get really creative about government funding could be one way that they could keep going with R&D.
Yes.
And freeze these non-essential expenditures that you're referring to.
Yeah, because there's lots of tools available. There's a special tool that I've been referring to a lot. It's called Supports for BC Business and Individuals. And it talks about all the programs that are available. It's a one-spot shopping place, if you want to lack a better word, that you can drill down into different programs that can help you source those funds to be able to take your product, your technology to the next stage. And then we also have our MMP Business Advice, COVID Business Advice Center, that there's a link you can register for getting updates regularly and all that stuff for all the changes, because every day there's a new announcement.
One of the areas, Gary, that you raised was the idea of having to potentially lay off staff or to make choices as you look at essential versus non-essential about who you might lay off and who to keep or who to bring back, depending on what programs you could access. Could you describe for us how you make those kinds of decisions and what supports are available? And we can delve more into this in additional workshops, but I think an overview to help people understand how to think about these decisions could be very helpful to our teams.
Okay, so critically upfront, the couple of programs that were announced initially to keep your employees, one was the temporary wage subsidy, which was a 10% reduction in your payroll withholdings that you sent off to the government. And the next one that was announced was the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, which gave funding to the employers. So you would still pay your people their full wage, but based on how you qualify for that, you could get up to 75% of that wage back from the government. So you'd be really only out of pocket 25 cents on the dollar to keep that employee. So those are the wage subsidies that are available to the employers. The employees, as the individual, can go apply for that Canadian Emergency Response Benefit or apply for EI. And then you could do up creative work sharing agreements where they're still getting those payments, and then you're sort of topping up to a certain maximum that they can earn while they're still getting those benefits.
This is where this transition is important between being a technologist, being a researcher, being an innovator, and becoming a business person in order to navigate these waters and this new time that we're going through.